Published in 1949, George Orwell's 1984 is one of the most influential dystopian novels of all time. Written shortly after World War II and during the early years of the Cold War, the work reflects Orwell's concerns about totalitarianism, propaganda, and the manipulation of power. 1984 not only warns of the dangers of oppressive governments, but also examines the state's ability to control thoughts and emotions. Today, more than 70 years after its publication, the book remains relevant and serves as a grim reminder of the consequences of absolute control. The story is set in a dark, dystopian future in the year 1984, in a fictional society called Oceania, where the government is led by the mysterious and omnipresent Big Brother. Oceania is ruled by the Party, which exercises total control over every aspect of its citizens' lives. The protagonist, Winston Smith, works at the Ministry of Truth, where his job is to rewrite historical records so they align with the party's official version of events, manipulated to suit its narrative. However, Winston begins to question the party and its absolute control over the truth. He feels isolated in his rebellious thoughts, knowing that any sign of dissent could be detected by constant surveillance, either through the omnipresent telescreens or the thought police, who monitor even the slightest indications of betrayal. His growing discontent with the regime leads him to commit what he knows is a grave crime, keeping a diary, an act of rebellion against the party's imposition of lies. Main characters. Winston Smith, the protagonist, a 39-year-old man who works for the Ministry of Truth. Winston is introspective and questioning, which makes him a tragic figure in the fight against the party's tyranny. Julia, a young woman who also works at the Ministry of Truth and becomes Winston's lover. Unlike Winston, Julia is practical and rebels against the party in a more personal and immediate way, without being overly concerned with larger philosophical issues. O'Brien, a member of the inner party, O'Brien initially presents himself as an ally in the fight against Big Brother, but later reveals himself as a traitor and a staunch defender of the party. Big Brother, the symbolic figure of the supreme leader of Oceania. Although it is unclear if Big Brother truly exists, his image is everywhere, and he embodies the party's power and surveillance. Key themes: totalitarianism and control. One of the central themes of 1984 is the denunciation of totalitarianism and the absolute power of the state over the individual. The party exerts complete control not only over people's actions, but also over their thoughts and emotions. Orwell depicts a world where absolute power corrupts absolutely, and individuality is suppressed in favor of total obedience. Manipulation of truth and history. The Ministry of Truth, where Winston works, is responsible for altering historical records to conform to the party's official narrative. This demonstrates how control of information is essential for maintaining power, and how the manipulation of truth is used as a weapon to subjugate and dominate the masses. Language and thought. Orwell introduces the concept of newspeak, a language created by the party to limit the capacity to think critically or question the regime. The idea is that by reducing the available words, the party can eliminate even the possibility of rebellious thought. Language, therefore, is presented as a means of mental control, surveillance, and freedom. The book depicts a society where surveillance is constant and privacy does not exist. The telescreens, which not only broadcast party propaganda but also monitor citizens, symbolize the erosion of personal freedom. Winston knows that any movement or word can be interpreted as an act of betrayal. 1984 is a powerful warning about the dangers of totalitarianism and absolute government control. George Orwell reminds us that when a state controls information, manipulates history, and denies the truth, freedom and individuality are the first victims. The novel remains relevant as it reflects contemporary fears about privacy, surveillance, and the erosion of civil liberties. Winston Smith, despite his defeat, becomes a symbol of resistance and the fight for truth and freedom. 1984 remains essential reading for those who wish to understand the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of resisting oppression.